hey, welcome to spooky season. Don't mind me, I'm just prepping for a little autumnal witchcraft. Got my other bean juice. Hot. There's something undeniably fascinating about witches. To me, they symbolize the unique power that comes from cheating the traditional power systems by tapping into something deeper and darker and more evil. My favorite witch is actually in the Bible, the infamous Witch of Endor, who King Saul consults, foreshadowing his doom. Now, the Bible is generally against magic, so what would drive King Saul to consult a witch? There's also something very captivating to me about the craft in witchcraft. I love just regular everyday crafting, from using raw ingredients to cook something, random fabric scraps into a dress, woodworking. Crafting uses basic ingredients to create something gestalt, more than the sum of its parts, where the coalescence magic comes from human creativity and state transformations. Witchcraft uses the same commonplace ingredients to yield blessings or curses, but the transformation power being tapped into is eldritch. Or gastric, in the case of gastromancy. You see, the Witch of Endor wasn't any garden variety witch. She was a gastromancer, or ventriloquist, who used the sounds of her stomach to speak to the dead. So, join me on a spooky autumnal adventure through the history of the monarch, the witch, and the borborygmus. So to really understand the Witch of Endor, we need to understand what it means to be a witch in this historical context. The term witch was originally for both males and females, and didn't actually show up until the 9th century, already with connotations from Christianity. To discuss magic practitioners before the rise of Christendom, we can use terms like shaman, those with a connection with the spirit world, or necromancers, those who perform rituals around death. Before we had a more scientifically grounded understanding of causality, humans in most societies had concepts of good magic, meant to heal or bless, and black magic, meant to harm or curse. Practitioners of these arts were revered. For example, in the traditional folk religion of the Han Chinese, necromancers played an important role in seeking blessings from dead ancestors, through ritual displays of filial piety. Though both women and men were practitioners, women tended to focus on the domains of women in their societies, such as childbirth. There were, however, cool exceptions to gender norms. Women who could see into the future and perform rituals were known as Pythonessa. The term Pythonessa didn't have any negative connotations, and was actually derived from Pythia, the high priestess of Apollo. Apollo's Pythia was named after the python, the monstrous serpent Apollo slayed. Since these cultures generally had pantheistic or shamanistic beliefs, the practice wasn't viewed as a threat. This, of course, had to change with the advent of monotheism. In the Old Testament book of Deuteronomy, in order to set God's chosen Israelites apart from their Canaanite neighbors, the practices of divination, or shamanistic practices, later known as bone conjuring, not directly from God, were considered anathema.
When thou art come into the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, thou shalt not learn to do according to the abominations of those nations. There shall not be found among you any one who maketh his son or daughter to pass through the fire, or who useth divination, or an observer of the times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. For all who do these things are an abomination unto the Lord, and because of these abominations, the Lord thy God doth drive them out before thee. Unless, of course, you are a high priest of Israel.
You see, at the time, Judaism had all sorts of divination methods. When Israel's king Saul wanted to know the outcome of a war with the neighboring Philistines, he inquired of the Lord answered him not, neither by dreams, nor by Urim, nor by prophets. Now the Urim is referring to the Urim and Thummim, which translate from Hebrew as lights and truth. They are elements of the Choshen, the breastplate worn by the high priest. So there's debate on exactly what the Urim and Thummim were and how they were used. Some rabbis argued that the one consulting the priest would ask the question, and the priest would face the Ark of the Covenant, and a bright light would shine from the jewels, spelling out the answer. Side note, Joseph Smith of Mormon notoriety was inspired to divine the Book of Mormon using a similar method to translate the golden plates, using an Urim and Thummim described by his mother as diamonds. Back to Judaism. Other rabbis theorized that the Urim and Thummim were small tablets of wood or bones that could be thrown in a way where their landing could imply innocence or guilt. This general practice was known as kleromancy, where kleros, the Greek word for lot, is the etymological root of cleric and clergy. This notably used similar methods to other divination rituals, but since God was speaking through it, it was okay. So now we return to poor King Saul. He has consulted all the approved avenues for divination to learn the outcome of the battle, but has gotten no response from God. So, in his fear and desperation, he turns to witchcraft. Except he had already driven all the witches from the land. Luckily, now that he needs one, he has the resources and internal justification to get one anyway. Which is weirdly reminding me of something. Something some people want to make illegal, but totally access when they need it? Yeah, I don't know. So, in true "the rules are for other people" fashion, Saul anonymously sets up a meeting with Epiphanessa, a woman in Endor. He disguises himself and consults the woman, saying,
I pray thee, divine unto me by the familiar spirit, and bring me him up, whom I shall name unto thee.
The woman of Endor, seeing this suspicious man in a disguise, says,
Behold, thou knowest what Saul hath done, how he hath cut off those with familiar spirits and wizards out of the land. Wherefore then thou layest a snare for my life, to cause me to die?
Saul makes the interesting choice, giving God's previous command to wipe out all the witches, that,
As the Lord liveth, there shall no punishment happen to thee.
So he requests that she bring up the shade of Samuel, the prophet that anointed Saul king in the first place. She does so, and Samuel is pretty pissed.
Why hast thou disquieted me to bring me up? I am sore distressed, for the Philistines make war against me. God is departed from me, and answereth me no more, either by prophets nor by dreams. Therefore I have called thee, that thou mayest make known to me what I shall do.
Wherefore then dost thou ask of me, seeing the Lord is departed from thee, and is become thine enemy? The Lord will deliver Israel with thee into the hands of the Philistines, and tomorrow shalt thou and thy sons be with me.
Saul passes out from fear, the woman feeds him a calf, and the prophecy comes true the next day. Now the woman of Endor, notably not called a witch yet, is treated fairly non-judgmentally in this passage. The only passage that references her again is 1 Chronicles, where there's some strange retconning. Saul's death is now blamed in part for consulting the woman of Endor, and contradictorily not inquiring of the Lord. So really, he just needed to have asked the Lord instead. Huh. Well, we're not quite done with the woman of Endor yet, but we've got to skip ahead a bit. I always thought of the Middle Ages as a time for witch hunts, in tandem with the Inquisition, but it wasn't really a problem. Interestingly, major thinkers in the medieval era, such as Pope Gregory VII and Boucard, Bishop of Worms, were generally against superstition, but rejected the possibility of magic practitioners having any actual magic. In fact, King Culliman of Hungary decreed a ban on witch hunting because he said, witches do not exist. Surprisingly enlightened for the Dark Ages, despite the clear motivation of the Catholic Church to monopolize the connection with God and the clergy. There were Catholic-sanctioned hunts against devil worshippers, which happened in waves, but even the Catholic Inquisitions of the 12 to 1400s were mostly focused on identifying heretics amongst the Jews and Muslims who had been forced to convert to Catholicism. The famous Spanish Inquisition was enacted by Catholic monarchs in their multicultural, historically Muslim and Jewish territories, and was really socio-political in motivation. The major fear and obsession with witchcraft didn't actually begin until after the Reformation in the 1500s. Things got bad for witches, and by that I mean just any woman who could be conceivably accused of being a witch after the Reformation. The beginnings of witch hunt hysteria began in Denmark with Christian IV. Towards the end of his life, he became obsessed with the evils of witchcraft and orchestrated several mass witch burnings. This hysteria spread to Scotland when King James VI of Scotland and his new Danish bride, Anne of Denmark, were sailing home and were beset by such a terrible storm they had to shelter in Norway. The storm was blamed on the wife of a Copenhagen official who, under torture, confessed to acts of sorcery, sending devils to attack the ship. Under torture, she divulged the names of 5 others, who, in turn, under torture, divulged the names of others, and over 70 people were implicated. This had a profound effect on King James, who had never even considered the idea that so many evil witches had it out for him. So, when English gentleman Reginald Scott created an exposé of witchcraft in his the discovery of witchcraft, and dared to create a seminal work on the practice of stage magic, and dared to decry witches as charlatans, James furiously countered with his very own philosophical dissertation, Demonology, a book that reasoned very logically that God would never have made that Deuteronomy interdiction on witchcraft if it wasn't a real and present threat. Demonology, with such chapters as Comparisons between the Miracles of God and the Devil, The Path of a Sorcerer's Apprentice, and Methods of Transportation and the Illusions of Satan, had immense impact when 6 years after its publication, James succeeded Elizabeth I as now King of England, King of Ireland, and King of Scotland. King James, of the King James translation of the Bible, took a new interest in the woman of Endor, as he was able to recognize her for what she really was. A witch he proclaimed her, and a witch we know her as to this day. So, now we can ask ourselves, if the woman is a witch, what exactly is her witchcraft? If we go back to the biblical Hebrew, she is known as a possessor of an Obed Endor. It's unclear exactly what Ob refers to. It could be a ritual pit for summoning the dead, similar to the chasm of vapors the Pythia of Delphi used. But it could also be a wineskin, which is a reference to the Latin ventriloquism, or, as it's known in Greek, gastromancy. The noises the stomach makes, known in medicine as borborygmus, were thought to be the voices of the unliving, who took up residence in the stomach of ventriloquists, or gastromancers. The Pythia was recorded as using gastromancy, and the practice has historically been used in religion and rituals by the Zulu, Inuit, and Maori peoples. What this means, of course, is that Saul's conversation with Samuel might have sounded something more like this.
I'm sore distressed, for the Philistines make war against me. God is departed from me and answereth me no more, neither by prophets nor by dreams. Therefore, I have called thee that thou mayest make known to me what I shall do.
As a sufferer of irritable bowel syndrome, which is how I've had the time to read so many Wikipedia pages and find so many cool facts. As a sufferer of IBS and lover of all beans, I experience a rather profound auditory level and duration of borborygmus, or stomach grumbles. Learning that I could have, in history, been lauded as a gastromancer, consulted by kings, it almost makes up for all the pain. It is in fact the eldritch within me. The Witch of Endor, gastromancer she may or may not have been, will always hold a beloved place in my heart and my stomach. Thanks for watching. Bonus request. I really love the 2010 adaptation of Macbeth, where the witches are portrayed as creepy nurses, and their witchcraft is medical instrument based. But what I really want are cyber witches. Maybe kind of like that girl in Sky High, but fused with a William Gibson style technomancer, where Hecate is like an eldritch AI, and the rituals are in a creepy, dark server room.